This video is sponsored by Raycon. Alright, y'all. Y'all ready to watch some totally not Mark? She about to be heat, straight gas. Hold up. Alright. Can y'all see the screen? Does it work? Mark is such a bitch. Cleaning Otis asshole every review. But always got bad stuff to say about other series. Does he? What a naughty, naughty boy that Mark. Don't worry. I'm going to give him a good spanking just for you, Sketchy. In fact, I'll give him 2 spankings if you donate $5. And for every $5 you donate, another spanking. So. Also, my microphone is haunted. So sometimes a poltergeist tries to come through my mic and make loud static noises. So prepare yourself for loud static sometimes. That's just my ghost friend. Her name is Mary. She doesn't know a lot about social cues, so you got to prepare for that. Anyway, let's begin this. Let's make sure the audio's okay.
This video is sponsored by.
How is the audio compared to my voice? Is it too low?
So,
is it loud enough?
My bookshelf is a clear delineation between two
la
colors,
la la la
white
la
and
la
black.
la la
These
la.
obviously represent 2 separate parts of Naruto, and because I only had 1 arc
Turn it up.
left in the
What
white
about that?
section, I was interested
Blah
to
blah
see
blah
just
blah blah.
how
I
Kishimoto
lost a
would end this
friend.
part
Where
of the
did
story.
I go
And
wrong?
I'm gonna be honest.
I lost a
also
friend.
looked at this last arc, and
Somewhere,
instead of seeing just
blah,
a
blah,
story,
blah.
I saw
Okay.
8 full volumes
still
for me
low?
to finish reading before I
Perfecto?
could begin writing this video.
Okay. Are we turning it up again? We turn it up again. I'm turning it up again. Okay. What about this?
This video is sponsored by.
Is that good?
As you guys know, I'm doing these reviews completely blind.
What?
And
What?
so, all I see when I
Is
look at
it
my
still-
bookshelf is a clear
Is that okay?
delineation between 2
Okay.
colors, white.
Alrighty. I'm not turning it up more. You guys have to deal with that. Anyway, let me turn my lights off. Okay. Ugh. Sorry, I weigh like 400 times the average weight of you. So it takes like 30 times more calories to stand up. By the way, I'm drinking orange juice. Not any type of alcohol or substance. Okay. Or no chaser at all. Alrighty. Yeah, I'm drinking my own piss, actually. That's a good one. Okay, anyway, you guys ready? We all good? We're all ready?
Son, where'd you find this?
Wait, money? So, I'm trying to sub, but it doesn't let me, so I'm gonna donate every 2 days. Thank you. That is a brilliant strategy, actually. I love that strat. If you can't sub, just donate $5 every 2 days. All of you should do that, actually. That'd be great.
This video is sponsored by Raycon. As you guys know, I'm doing these reviews completely blind.
Bruh. He looks so tired, bro. Like, he just needs a nap. You know what I mean? This motherfucker just needs a nap. For real, he just needs a nap.
Oh, I'm doing these reviews completely blind.
He looking like
And so,
he's going
all
blind.
I see when I look at my
gonna be
bookshelf
real.
is a clear delineation between 2 colors, white and black. These obviously represent 2 separate parts of Naruto, and because I only
Wait, are we talking about race? What the fuck? I wasn't paying attention. What do you say? Is this racial?
look at my bookshelf is a clear delineation between 2 colors, white and black. These obviously represent 2 separate parts of Naruto, and because I only had 1 arc left in the white section, I was interested to
Naruto
see just
Asian?
how Kishimoto would end this part of the story. And I'm gonna be honest, I also looked at this last arc, and instead of seeing just a story, I saw 8 full volumes for me to finish reading before I could begin writing this video. However, once I finished this arc, I noticed something. Something I had harshly criticized this story for not having has now become one of its strongest attributes.
What did you
Today,
criticize?
I want to share with you all my first impressions and review for the final
this shit's
arc
a banger.
of
I
original
love it when he does
Naruto.
this shit.
And what an arc it is.
This is the best part of every video. Straight gas.
Remember when I said that I looked on with concern at the 8 full volumes of manga I had to read and review this week? Well, what an idiot I was. The material in these volumes are easily some of the most simple in terms of story, but also have, I think, the very best paneling and layout work from Kishimoto that I've seen yet, making the entire process of reading deceptively quick and seamless. I'm telling you, I was slamming volumes like pints at Christmas. Often when it comes to the artists behind these famous mangas, the development or change of their respective artistic approaches, styles, occurs unconsciously and gradually over time. JoJo, Dragon Ball, and One Piece are clear and striking examples.
What the fuck was going on with that Goku?
Styles occurs unconsciously and gradually over time. JoJo, Dragon
Oh, it's like a... Is that like a Gintoki Goku?
Ball and One Piece are clear and
Gintoki
striking
Luffy?
examples of this phenomenon. Comparing their work from the beginning
Whatever
of their
the fuck
run
his
to
name
their
is,
most
Gin
recent stuff
Loki?
highlights my point. Natural
Ginbroki?
changes
I don't know his
occur.
fucking name.
And while some of this can explain part of what's happened to Kishimoto's work here as a mangaka, I think there's also a very conscious effort being exerted here. In the beginning of volume 20...
So, my opinion on the art of Naruto, I think a lot of people actually think part 1 Naruto is better art than part 2. I like part 2 more. I love how all of Kishimoto's art later on it just looks so concise and clean, and it makes the story just feel really official and easy to read. That's one thing I like about Kishimoto more than the other guys. Like when you read One Piece, like everything is kind of like overdrawn. Like you have like these simplistic goofy characters, but they're kind of like overdrawn. And then with Bleach, it's kind of like he's trying to draw, it's almost like a really good fan artist, that draws really edgy anime characters, but the entire manga is edgy anime fan art. So one thing I like about Naruto is it just feels like a clean, concise, just manga. It doesn't feel like anything extra, which I always really liked. A lot of people think that's a bad thing, but I actually liked the simplicity of Naruto as the art got better. So.
Kishimoto vents his frustrations with the manga format, drawing from top right to bottom left, calling it limiting. And this frustration can be felt in the volumes concerning this section specifically, sporting gorgeous pages and panels that really grab my attention, the likes of which I haven't seen much from Kishimoto at all. It's wonderful to see a mangaka 200 chapters into his career still trying to push himself to innovate. But what's interesting about this change compared to the aforementioned mangaka is that Kishimoto's transition is directly influenced by the very thing that's trying to mimic him. That's right, Kishimoto was directly influenced by Naruto's anime's character designer Tetsuya Nishio. He saw some amazing design work coming from Nishio on the anime and loved how it seemed like such a great mix of seinen and shonen styles. He thought it was the ideal art style he'd been looking for, and ever since he'd been mimicking Nishio's drawings. In a lot of these author note sections, Kishimoto brings up many famous animators such as Hiroyuki Okiura, who worked on
Kishimoto really likes
things
the
like Ghost in the Shell and Akira, which makes me think
Kishimoto
he's
really
an
likes the
animation
anime
nut.
for Naruto.
I mentioned one particular animator who has largely defined what Naruto action is, and that's Norio Matsumoto. Sasuke versus Orochimaru, Rock Lee versus Gaara, Orochimaru versus the third Hokage, and now Naruto versus Sasuke.
So one thing I noticed about these Mark reviews is that him and his animator, or sorry, him and his editor kind of deliberate on what to say in a lot of these videos. But another thing I noticed is that Mark clearly does research for these videos, and it's not really just his blind opinion a lot of the time. He clearly does like a bit of research, so I don't know. I noticed like some people were critiquing me for saying it's just a blind review, and he actually does do a bit of research, it seems, for a lot of things he says. And obviously he kind of deliberates about it, so I don't know. That's something to consider when you watch these videos, I think. But anyway, I think he's I think what he's saying is interesting. I like the whole Naruto inspiration off the anime. It's
All
cool.
these iconic scenes come from this man, and as I've watched those and continued to read, I've noticed Kishimoto's work beginning to resemble the energy and posing found in Matsumoto's work. I can only theorize about his influence here, but given Kishimoto's love of animation,
No way he'd
it
regularly
seems like
know
a
those
safe
two
bet.
chapters
Having
were
already
iconic.
achieved so much notoriety
He
in the
clearly knows
industry
a little
with so
bit,
many
yeah.
people at this point looking up to him, I think it's a great sign of a mangaka and a person to be able to look outward and inward for a means to try and improve himself. It really does seem like
I'd
the
love
more I
him
learn
to
about
see
Kishimoto as
what
a
he thinks
person,
about the
the more I
editor
realize
shit
how
talking
close he is to
Kishimoto. It's kind of
Naruto
funny.
as a character.
空びた言葉をつないでそれでも僕のシンプル
While the conclusions to the prior
What if I told you guys a secret? What if I told you that the Sasuke Retrieval arc is my favorite arc in all of Naruto? Would you believe me?
arc's activity with the assault on the village after being dealt with and the selection of the latest Hokage after being finalized, I was fully expecting this arc to feel like a footnote after everything that's happened. I was wrong. Despite being one of the longest arcs among the material I've covered so far, the story in question is remarkably simple, which meant that a lot of space was given to this arc's various components to breathe, build up, and climax appropriately. And boy, do they climax appropriately. The first act of this arc is the one that carries most of the heavy lifting from an expository and foundational sense, upon which the rest of the arc launches from comfortably. That said, the rest of this arc consists of a series of fights and chase scenes, and that might not sound interesting, but Kishimoto makes it work really well. Act 1. If I could describe this arc in one word, it would be cathartic and focused. Having come off the back of a rip-roaring couple of arcs with more conflict than you could swing a cat at, going into this I was curious to see the direction Kishimoto was going to take. Sure, we'd have to deal with the aftermath of the attack on the village and Lady Tsunade settling into her new position, but outside
There's
of that,
always
I didn't
someone
see
giving
much
smoke
else to
in
deal with
Naruto
outside
to
of
someone.
perhaps the Itachi and Sasuke conflict.
There's never
In the
anyone
last
just
arc,
chilling.
While I didn't speak much about it, Itachi very much cemented himself as one of the most terrifying major players in the story. As soon as he appeared on the other side of the door facing Naruto, I sincerely felt the tension and pressure rise, which is exactly the sort of impression you want from a major villain or antagonist. And the action and drama that took fuel from that encounter as Sasuke entered the fray to make the save on Naruto, it felt like a monumental moment in every sense of the word that was building to something.
I thought that bird
However,
was
then,
actually outside
the
my
rug
fucking
is
house.
pulled from beneath us. Despite the other arcs that make up the rest of this first part of Naruto being somewhat more complex, with a greater number of moving parts, this arc and its 8 volumes primarily concern themselves with Sasuke's relationship with his brother and the choices he makes in seeking revenge in response to that. And
Yes.
I loved it. My biggest complaint after I finished the very first arc of Naruto was that it felt
Spit
somewhat unfocused. And now in this arc, not only are things
Come on.
incredibly simple, but each facet of this arc now receives ample attention.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
My hand slipped. Oops,
Sasuke versus
IG.
Naruto
What the fuck? Wait, slip what? Oh, thanks for the $5, buddy. Thank you so much.
round 1. Funnily enough, despite being mentioned once before that Sasuke desired to test
Yeah, why does he think that the part, like the Naruto part, was so unfocused? That is a good point. Why was it so unfocused to him? I feel like a lot of it was ambitious, I think, but I don't think it's unfocused per se. I think he had a clear idea of what he wanted to do.
himself against
There's a clear progression of how the character is evolving over time. Like, as an example, you know, Naruto clearly gets his ambition, and then it starts developing of what it means for him as the arcs go on and what it means to be a ninja. Everything's just progressing very clearly on how these guys stand in the world is progressing very clearly, and how dark the world is progressing. Everything seems very focused to me. I don't know how I feel about unfocused, but
Naruto. This matchup, for one reason or another, faded into the back of my
Sakura actually developed as a character during the last arc in her fight with Ino. But for some reason, Mark just didn't understand Sakura, actually. So no, Sakura did actually have a focused development by this point. In fact, I think by this time, Sakura has one of her biggest shifts in development that you will ever see. So it's kind of interesting.
my subconscious as something I either didn't know I wanted or one that I totally forgot about. And I have no idea why, because on paper these two squaring off makes complete sense and are a terrific matchup narratively speaking. I mentioned before in an earlier video that I felt the closer Naruto came to achieving his goal, the farther away Sasuke would be pushed by his. With Orochimaru having laid that metaphorical Chekhov's gun before us when he said Sasuke needs to seek out more power by embracing the darkness in his heart, I knew a scene or sequence of events would play out like this, and it's so much better than I thought it would be.
Yo, Sakura speed feat? Question mark?
Possible thanks to some key pieces of symbolism laid out across this series. The initial fight that kicks off this arc's activity is short but punctuated powerfully by a striking visual by really putting into perspective the gap that's appearing between himself and Naruto. However, at this point in the story, I think it's important to point out that their relationship isn't necessarily interesting to me because of their dynamic on its own, and that largely has to do with Kakashi and Jiraiya pretty much telling us explicitly what's happening narratively between them. We're not left to understand this on our own by reading the material and understanding it ourselves, and as a result, this exposition feels clunky and did take away from this short but opening fight between them. Then again, this is a manga for young teens, so
Okay, so I don't remember exactly what happened, but does Kakashi actually understand what was happening with Sasuke, or were they just speculating? Did they talk about, yeah, Sasuke's conflicted because his battle with Gaara made him insecure and feel like he's his duality of wanting to be a shinobi and friends with Naruto, and then being a lone avenger that seeks only one purpose like Gaara is like weakening him. Did Kakashi say something like that? He says it's like you and Orochimaru. Does he actually say it? They were just saying how their duality is the same as Jiraiya and Orochimaru. Kakashi basically says Naruto's growth makes Sasuke feel like his growth is little. Kakashi said Naruto growing is making Sasuke feel like he's nothing. But Kakashi's, like, wrong. Like, I mean, I guess it kind of makes him feel like he's nothing, but I feel like it's more like just the Gaara fight in general is making Sasuke just feel insecure. But I guess Kakashi's kind of right. I don't know. I feel like even though Kakashi said that, it's not the whole story. So I feel like it's still okay. Like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Do you guys think it's too spoiling? I don't know. Kakashi's like half right. Yeah, he's like half right. So I don't know. The other problem too is that Sasuke and Orochimaru are different as well. Just because he wants to seek power or whatever, like Orochimaru, and cut off his bonds, like the reasonings are kind of different. Like the motivations are different. Like a lot of things are different, so I don't know. Kakashi is too hung up on the rivalry of it. Yeah. Yeah, because Sasuke's not, I don't know. He sees Naruto as a rival, but it's not really like it's not like a childish rivalry thing for Sasuke, so I don't know.
So
I'll just let you guys decide on that one. I think it's more debatable than a bad thing.
I'm gonna let it slide. I will, however, say what I did really enjoy was the role mentors are playing in this story. Whether that be Kakashi and Sasuke, which I will definitely speak about more later, Jiraiya's relationship with Naruto as I've described in the past, Sakura's new budding relationship with Lady Tsunade, and of course, Guy's relationship with Rock Lee.
Actually, yeah.
Rock Lee's been an interesting character in this story. From the moment I met him back during the Chunin exams, I knew I liked this little guy. With him time and time again throughout the story, whether whether it be in the Force of Death, the fight with Gaara, or his rehabilitation after that fight, he sort of, in a way, stood as an example of what a hero with a similar mentality to that of Naruto might appear like if he didn't have an all-powerful spirit trapped within him. When Naruto, in the first half of this story, contended with inadequacy and a chip on his shoulder, eventually Kishimoto was forced to transition his character from one that struggled to make a difference to one who had to deal with the high expectations from those around him. Lee, on the other hand, because of the lack of advantages he has compared to Naruto, can fully lean into and embrace angles an outcast character like Naruto once was afforded. Naruto can self-heal thanks to the fox spirit inside him, and so a natural way to explore Lee's character to further distinguish him from Naruto is to have him absorb a tremendous amount of damage and the consequences of that action. Which brings me to his mentor, Guy. In many ways, the mentor characters...
Yeah, I don't think the water tank's that important. Okay, so... I think they're somewhat... Part 1 Lee is overrated. Okay, I think there's somewhat of a parallel with Naruto and Lee, but I don't think it's, like, that big. Naruto suffers from depression due to the powers that he's been given. Like, his life struggles are due to his abilities. So those things that grant him talents are his weaknesses. As well. They're like a sign of his turmoil. So it's kind of like Naruto's strengths are his turmoil, and Rock Lee's weaknesses are his. And then they try to make them their strengths. I think it's a better way to word it. But unlike Lee, Naruto has to face impending death because of them. So they're a little bit different, but I think that's a better way to describe their parallel. But that's just a nitpick. I think it's fine to say that they have some similar things in common. Obviously, Lee was rooting for Naruto versus Neji for a reason, right?
In this story mirror key attributes of their students' personalities. Guy is perhaps the most pronounced
everyone is a
on
Naruto,
this concept.
right?
Everything from his appearance to his desire
Everyone's
to prove
a
himself
Naruto.
against Kakashi to his soul-destroying training exercises. In every sense of the word, the connection between Guy and Lee is as powerful as it is because they feel like father and son. Once again providing Lee in this story horrific odds for anyone to have to face, let alone a young teenager. I spoke about Guy before in a prior part, saying that I thought he saw a tremendous amount of himself in Lee, and due to that, sees him as something of an inspiration to even him. And while that was true, in this arc, their relationship is tested as Guy comes face to face with the consequences of the path he laid this young boy down.
You know, it's kind of cringe, though. Might Guy can use ninjutsu. Lol.
And so he's faced with a dilemma. Does he encourage him like he always had, to look the odds in the eye unblinking and take the surgery which has a 50% mortality rate? Or does he choose to discourage him out of sympathy for his situation? It's a tremendous amount of responsibility, and it's a fascinating character study within this arc that I think has the most emotional resonance. If you're in the market for new wireless earbuds that
here we
offer
go.
the
This
same
is the best
quality
part of the
as
video for
premium
me.
brand at half the price, then Raycon's everyday earbuds are exactly what you need.
I might
They've
get
got a
'em.
super slick rubber oil look and feel that, at least to me, look pretty damn great and match their premium
them
sound.
things clean.
With a whole bunch of gel tips available,
wee.
they've always got a perfect in-ear fit too. I've been
Damn,
using mine for
perfect.
several months now, and they've quickly...
Mark, if I played, like, sad, like, depressing music over this clip, it'd fit, man. You need to take a nap, bro. You need to take a nap. Please.
become the best earbuds I've...
Don't look at the camera like that, man. Please take a nap. I'm sorry. Imagine you have sadness. Imagine you had sadness and sorrow. Just playing over
been using
this.
mine for several months now, and they've quickly become the best earbuds I've ever owned. Whether I'm just out and about walking my dogs or sat at home
He
writing
just needs to
videos
take-
like
he just needs
these,
to take a
they've
nap.
got me covered. With a built-in mic, I can take calls
Poor
at the press
man.
of a button and even leave voice memos for myself. The fact it's got 8 hours of constant playtime and a 32-hour battery life means they're always ready to go whenever I need them. If you're interested, click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com
I think Mark's
/Mark
is
to
kinda
unlock
old.
exclusive deals up
He's like
to
30
20%
something,
off
I
your
think.
Raycon order. With a 45-day happiness
So
guarantee,
maybe it's just
if you don't
age?
love
I
him,
don't
you
know.
can send him right back.
Eu sou Naruto Uzumaki. Faça parte da
I wonder if he.
jornada
I wonder if
ninja.
he has enough of these for
Seja
every
meu
episode.
aliado
These weird
agora.
commercials.
Acesse narutoonline.tv. Acerte os golpes, Lute com coragem, torne-se Hokage.
Why
assim
this
como eu.
Spanish one?
Totalmente grátis. É só acessar Naruto Online.
Aren't I 30? No.
Viva seu lado ninja.
I am not
Viva a
30.
aventura ninja de Naruto Uzumaki.
I'm actually nowhere
Act
close to
2.
30.
The scene where Sasuke chooses to leave to connect with the dark side is actually a lot more effective than I thought it would be. It's certainly not profound or anything like that, but it really does feel authentic and honest to the characters involved, which is the most important thing. In this scene, Sakura tries her best to persuade Sasuke to stay with them, and in doing so pours her heart out in a tender, albeit awkward scene, which I honestly thought was appropriate and, well, perfect. They are just kids after all, struggling to navigate the minefield that is expressing how they feel about each other while under extreme stress with little practice in that area. And it absolutely came across that way. I really did feel sorry for Sakura during this part, and while I don't vibe too much with her as a character, I did think this felt very authentic and appropriate for her. And following Sasuke leaving, the foundation is now set
paper
for the
cut?
chase
Let's
that
go.
will follow that day, with none other than
Paper
Shikamaru,
cut?
now a Chunin, being tasked with assembling a team. Interestingly, while Naruto was the obvious choice and is chosen to be part of that team,
As long as it's
Neji,
Jammer.
Kiba, and Choji were less expected by me, but absolutely
Yeah, the way
welcomed in
Mark
my
says
mind.
names is a little
The
goofy.
chase that eventually gets underway I thought was brilliant.
This shit's
While
hard,
there was
bro.
a little bit of a slow burn towards the middle, I definitely thought the attention given to the fights really helped the pacing, as well as elevate the various
I think the
characters.
I think the Jirobo fight was a little bit boring, but when it was just Choji versus Jirobo, it was huge.
Otherwise didn't get the attention they deserved earlier in this story. Shikamaru, while having been given some shine in prior arcs, now leads the group of young ninja with an impressive and
Shikamaru is
strategic
so fucking
fashion
good,
that
man.
absolutely highlighted
Like, this is what I'm saying, bro. That this arc has Super Saiyan 2 Choji, has Shikamaru going in, Kiba goes in, Neji goes in, Naruto goes in, Gaara goes in, Lee goes in, bro. You get, like, the Sound 4, you get the Curse Mark 2s. Like, bro, this little arc has everything, bro. It's
it
so
not
fucking
only his
good.
upside
I love
as a
this
leader
shit.
and strategist,
my
but when
favorite.
things didn't go 100% to plan with his group's numbers dwindling, it also led him to question himself, wondering if he was good enough, which, for such a certain and calculated character, really helped to humanize him in a way I wasn't expecting, grounding him while also exhibiting his greatest strengths and techniques. And really, that's what this middle section does exceptionally
These
well.
dudes, I love it whenever these five are lined up, they're just about to drop a fucking rap album, bro. Like, there's some rap album being dropped every time these motherfuckers are lined up. Every time.
It helps to reestablish
They
these
always
lesser-known
doing the
and
hardest
second
poses
on
for no
characters,
reason.
offers them the chance to show their absolute best and shows their internal struggles and doubts. The way this chase is organized, it acts as a sort of conga line, for lack of a better term, of Orochimaru's goons to get through, and so, one after another, part
Nah,
of
this shit was
Shikamaru's
peak
team had to
Naruto,
drop
this
off to
arc,
fight
man.
each member of this group as they continue to carry Sasuke off in a basket for Orochimaru to take the body of. Choji's fight is first, and honestly, when I look at Neji's and Kiba's alongside this, I thought this one did it best. The rest follow a very similar format to this, and so on top of it benefiting from being the first time we see this sort of sequence and format,
The
I
fucking
think there's a
Linkin
lot
Park
more we can
AMV.
dig into with this material, seeing as Neji, for example, already had an emotionally charged fight with Naruto during the Chunin exam.
Neji
that
fucking
dealt
up
with
that
much of
spider
the
dude was
same
so
subject matter
satisfying.
discussed in this fight specifically. Furthermore, Choji has this.
Yes.
So I guess Kishimoto took a leaf out of One Piece's playbook and gave Choji rumble balls. And man, does he get massive during
Which-
this. Honestly,
Which came out first? Fucking, like, One Piece shit? Or was it Choji Battle? I'm sure One Piece came out first, right? I don't know the release dates, actually.
I didn't know what to expect with this, but once again,
Never
similar
paid
to
attention
what
to it.
made Shikamaru effective during this section, the conflict Choji endures serves as a great vehicle to demonstrate his skills that make him unique, but it also highlights his insecurities and shortcomings as a ninja and a human being too. I think out of
Let's
all
go,
the
my
fights in
goat.
this section, Choji's was by far my favorite. And while I was reading through this
I wonder
material
why everyone
too, I
hypes
was
up
shocked
Rock
by how
Lee when
fast I was
Choji went
flying
hard like
through
that,
it.
dude.
The
Like,
fights in
no
this
one talks
section
about
felt
Choji.
both compelling and brief, with the likes of Choji and Neji receiving plenty of wonderful two-page spreads while also demonstrating these Sound Ninjas' second forms, acting as a foreshadowing of things to come for Sasuke. I thought the second form designs the Sound Ninjas brandish were phenomenal. I wasn't so sure about them each getting a new transformation at first though. I thought the effect would get lessened each and every time with it being more.
Alright, here's how it goes. Sakon and Yukon's design is ass. Jirobo's design is ass. But Tuyuya and Kidomaru, those are heat.
more and more formulaic. But in actuality,
That's the
because the
official
designs
rule.
were so great, I actually
The
ended
law,
up
I've
getting hyped for
determined.
what they would eventually look like when they did change. Furthermore, once Naruto and Shikamaru's respective fights get underway, then the tempo really starts to ramp up. Particularly when it comes
Kimimara's
to
is cool,
Naruto's
too.
fight with this strange new character coming to take the basket housing Sasuke away. Naruto assumes that feral mode he slips into when his friends are in danger, and the artwork accompanying it is appropriately awesome. However,
Bruh,
things as they often do
Kimimaro
during
is
stories
so
go
raw.
to shit, and when they did here, something amazing happened.
Nah, see, man, that's what I mean. This shit's just peak
Really
Naruto,
fucking
man.
know I used to make this same. I'm not sure if my energy in this
Just
recording
peak
will accurately
Naruto,
show
man.
just how excited I felt when he showed up, but I went bananas because honestly I love this little character.
Put Rock
I
Lee
spoke
in
about how
Fortnite.
the last few volumes and fights really felt somewhat formulaic.
He don't need
in that they
ninjutsu if
effectively
he's got the
achieved
gat.
same sort of things narratively. But that formula has been thrown right out the window and replaced with the pure chaos Lee has injected into this fight. However, as things want to go in this story, we can't have too much of a good thing for too long. But that doesn't mean what we receive as a replacement isn't great also.
Good Diagara arc.
At the beginning of Volume 24, Kishimoto reminisced about his experience reading Dragon Ball Volume 24 for the first time and how that was where Goku fought against Ginyu. He described the affair as something he was massively excited to read through and hoped that he could make Naruto more exciting. When I opened that volume after reading nothing but what felt like quite safe choices up until now, this volume exploded with interest, near impossible to predict
Tamari
matchups
never uses
and
that weasel
last-minute
ever again.
saves, like the fight with Lee and his drunken monkey technique, which was hilarious and surprisingly effective against the worsening odds right after his surgery. And then Gaara and the other Sand Ninjas show up. I'm not even remotely kidding here. It's felt like more has happened in the last 5 chapters than there has been in the last 4 volumes. It's honestly brilliant stuff. Kimimaro is a brilliant looking villain and his fight against Lee and eventually Gaara is brilliantly handled. He is one of the most unsettling and awesome looking ninjas I've come across in this story. And when he whipped out his spine and used it as a sword, I was like, okay, look, I know I'm not a big fan of action only moments, but that was really friggin' cool. This fight is honestly not one I would ever have thought to create if left to my own devices, but the two powers on display here, sand manipulation and bone manipulation, created perhaps the most visually stunning battle sequence I've seen from this manga to date. Defensively, offensively, and the strategy employed by both warriors was enough to win my heart a million times over. And throwing Lee into the mix only served to exacerbate that feeling for me. Watching these two one-time enemies work together and in a sense save each other was immensely satisfying. And we're not done yet. There are moments in pop culture where you have to sit back and recognize that this was a moment not only pivotal to the story that it takes part in, but one that has influenced and impacted the lives of millions around the world. For me, that moment was Goku versus Vegeta. It was the very first piece of material I ever saw of Dragon Ball, and because of the impact that had on my life, I've gone on to make it my career. And this fight, Sasuke versus Naruto, this really and truly felt like the culmination of the entire series. Conveyed perfectly by Kishimoto as the strengths Naruto has garnered across his time spent with us are all used here to full effect. From his most bombastic and ostentatious abilities like the Shadow Clones and the Rasengan, all the way to the more subtle touches like when
Why'd he do that?
full effect. From his most bombastic and ostentatious abilities like the Shadow Clones and the Rasengan, all the way to the more
Is he, like,
subtle touches
did he miss
like
say it?
when
Is
he
it a
learned to
rendering
walk
error? I
on
don't know what it
water
is.
with Jiraiya. All of these skills are on display here and used to full effect, serving to heighten the drama and make this feel like we've reached a significant
Naruto and
endpoint.
Sasuke is
What
kind of
did
like if
catch me
Goku
off
and
guard,
Vegeta
however,
was like
that a massive
built up
portion
since
of this
chapter
fight
like
is
2.
spent in flashback.
Pretty
a
heat.
brilliant flashback,
Chapter 3,
but
actually.
it surprised me nevertheless. The flashback for Sasuke, while long, added so much to an occasion that felt as though it was starved of Sasuke's perspective. We got to see the decaying of Sasuke's relationship with his brother and the origins of his entire purpose in life. To get revenge. But one thing I will say about this before I move on is that I get the feeling that we're missing a large part of this story, namely Itachi's perspective on everything. Now, it might very well just turn out to be the case that he's a cold-blooded murderer that has no redeemable quality.
Mark knows, bruh. Like, we get it. You know. We all know you know. let's just continue.
But who knows, I'll see how that plays out in the future.
You know, bro.
Concerning the fight itself, the action in the opening minutes felt appropriately shocking and confusing due to Naruto's perspective. However, once the flashback revealing Sasuke's motivations and full backstory concluded, the fight suddenly felt both appropriate for each respective character and, most importantly, perfectly focused. The paneling and layout work by Kishimoto, as I mentioned earlier with the Gaara and Rock Lee encounter, is some of the best in the series, with Kishimoto really demonstrating how far he's come as an artist, going from strength to strength, leading to Naruto charging up his Rasengan and Sasuke his Chidori, with the paneling accompanying this being stronger than anywhere else I've seen in the manga. There's a point of view shot from underwater as we look on as these two ninjas dance on the water's surface, with their weapons floating down to the dark depths beneath, and
this was just the climax of Naruto for a lot of people.
Here. However, if I want to take a step back,
Naruto didn't get any better than this for some people.
It is my belief that the flashback we get after this concerning Kakashi's origins holds a lot more meaning behind it than might be evident at first glance. In this flashback, Kakashi's team
the Kakashi Minato flashback is also in the Sasuke. Dude, this is just peak fiction. This arc is just peak fiction. What the hell? It just literally just peak fiction arc. Like, what the fuck? Who was saying this isn't the best arc in Naruto? What arc beats this?
Of three individuals.
It has everything.
Called Obito Uchiha and a girl called Rin. And from this reflection on his early training days, we can see why perhaps he's taken a keen interest in Sasuke, taking him under his wing,
is
seeking
peak
to
fiction.
teach him the Chidori technique. Of that original group, Obito was clearly the overly emotional underachiever like Naruto was in Sasuke's group, while Rin could be a very convincing stand-in for Sakura, given that Sakura herself would begin studying the same jutsu Rin was. However, while reading this material, I couldn't help but cast my mind back to the first arc where Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura sat before Kakashi. In that very scene, Sasuke explained in no uncertain terms what his goals were, demonstrating his single-minded approach in becoming a ninja, and over the course of that story, this focus has remained. And with the farther and farther he pursued that line of thinking, Kakashi began getting more and more interested and involved in Sasuke's life, and I think there's a reason for it. He saw himself in Sasuke. Kakashi's flashback, wherein we first see him use the Chidori technique, he does so not taking into account how his actions will affect his teammates. Single-minded also in his goal, he ends up failing in that effort for the most part, and later in that same flashback, Rin gets kidnapped. Obito wants to rescue her, but Kakashi insists on completing the mission.
Damn, I don't remember
instead.
Obito fucking up Kakashi like that.
Obito convinces Kakashi to save her too, and from this, it's clear to see the similarities Kakashi sees in Sasuke, particularly striking for Kakashi given that he lost a close friend in the process of that mission. It's a touching flashback highlighting the origins of his eye, but for me, it highlighted instead the birth of who Kakashi is today. By the end of that sequence, the Chidori becomes a technique not exclusively of destruction, but one that instead represents protection.
That shit is just... Man, look at this shit. Y'all, look at this shit real quick.
In that sequence, the Chidori becomes a technique
this just
not
peak
exclusively
fiction.
Of destruction, but one
That's
that
just peak fiction, man.
Loved ones.
What beats that shit, bro?
Contextualized
God
every
damn.
He used that move in the series for me. However, if we are to think about
What
this
the
one layer
fuck?
deeper, his teaching of this technique to Sasuke with his explicit explanation of when to use this technique, it effectively acts as Kakashi handing Sasuke a representation of one's desire to protect what's most important to him, hoping that it will become that for him, to help him see what's actually important, to focus on what you have right now instead of what you lost. And so, when this story climaxes in the emphatic and grand fashion it does, Naruto's Rasengan explodes on contact with Sasuke's Chidori to create a stunning inferno of a spectacle, no doubt, but it's also a collision of two techniques that offer snapshots of how far
his
one
editor
has
would
come
help him?
and how far astray the other has fallen. The act and display of these techniques alone perfectly tell the story of these two fierce characters in a very real and metaphorical
Okay, so this is a
sense,
bit
with the technique
shallow,
that was
I think.
designed to protect those close to you, very literally being used in this instance.
This is
to
a bit
tear
of a
down the
shallow
one
review of
closest
this
to
last
Sasuke.
part, but...
This arc wears many different masks. It's a character-driven drama, it's a comedy, it's action, and it's a thriller. But in the end, this has become a story about two characters more than anything else.
Okay, so I like his breakdown. I like his breakdown on the lightning blade. That's really good. I like that. I think the breakdown of everything else is pretty simple. So I like the breakdown of that lightning blade. The only thing I don't like that he didn't break down, and I don't know if he knew it or not, once again, Naruto is about contradictions, Okay? So whenever Naruto fights, it's about bringing out the contradictions of his opponent, or who his opponent is, or like trying to figure out his opponent, right? That's what Naruto's been doing the whole series. He's been trying to figure out his opponents. You know what I mean? Trying to understand them. He understood Zabuza. He cried for Zabuza. He tried to understand Gaara. He tried to understand Neji. He tries to understand a lot of people he's been fighting. So, what's interesting for Naruto, and the reason that he got his ass whooped at the end here, is because while Sasuke understood Naruto and wanted to understand Naruto, Naruto did not want to understand Sasuke. Like, while Naruto demanded Sasuke see him as an equal, Naruto wasn't looking at Sasuke as an equal. He wasn't acknowledging his suffering, his struggles. So that's why Naruto got his ass clowned on at the end of this fight, and he didn't deserve to win. And the rest of the series, such as the Pain arc, the War arc, and all those things, it's about Naruto learning how Sasuke feels, understanding Sasuke, and then surpassing him. So that was really important for this fight in particular, that Naruto was not listening to Sasuke. He did not care about Sasuke and how he felt. He only cared about how he felt in that battle. So it's kind of disappointing Mark didn't touch up on that. If he didn't, maybe he did in this last minute. I just took a fat L, but I wish he touched up on that. Once again, I think I said that in the last review too, with the whole Gaara thing too. It's about Gaara's contradictions. That's why he lost. It's about Neji's contradictions. That's why he loses. So you need to like focus more on contradictions, I think.
And in the end, Naruto's first part ends in tragedy. Or does it? The choice Sasuke made
Yeah, but when he tried to do the same thing in Shippuden, he got his ass beat again. So
to not kill Naruto says more about his character than this entire fight ever could. And it's rather fitting that it takes
Naruto didn't beat Sasuke until he understood him
technique
and had a solution greater.
like Chidori couldn't be used to end the life of his friend. Overall, my impressions of this arc and really this first section of Naruto is a wonderful one. While it didn't start strong like many other series do, Kishimoto, and by extension this story, has a passion behind it that, much like its titular character, grew and grew more effective with each subsequent arc. I've transformed from someone that didn't know the first thing about Naruto, and now I consider myself a massive fan of Kishimoto and the work he's produced here with this section of the story.
Mandatory sad ending of anime reviewer. Anyway, it's the same formula. Every damn fucking anime reviewer does that shit, man. Tries to make that shit depressing as fuck. Like, it's like, we get it, bro. Will he understand it in a later arc? Well, hopefully, if his editor watches me review his review, his editor can tell him or something. But I don't know if his editor is helping him, because he keeps saying Rasengan. So maybe it's really just blind as fuck. You know what I mean? The thing about him getting it in Shippuden, I don't know if he will, because the like the Gaara retrieval arc and like the whole like Akatsuki invasion, or Kakuzu arc, it doesn't focus a lot on Naruto's contradictions or that kind of the like. So, and then the Pain arc is kind of subtle with contradictions. The Pain arc is like the hardest one to dissect the contradictions of, because Pain philosophically dominates Naruto that whole arc, and Naruto never philosophically beats Pain at all. And Naruto has to go through a war arc before he understands Pain fully. So, will he ever understand the contradiction thing if he didn't understand it in part 1? I don't think so. But maybe he will. But that whole contradiction thing is kind of like a big part of Naruto, and the fact he hasn't gotten it already, kind of sad, but whatever. I liked his whole Chidori lightning blade breakdown. If Mark ever watches this, Mark, please get some fucking sleep. And yeah, the Sasuke Retrieval arc is peak fiction. I after thinking about it, I think Sasuke Retrieval is probably like top 5 arcs in like any anime I've seen. Like, now that I think about it, that shit's way too good. Kakuzu doesn't have, like, the whole Kakuzu fight doesn't have a contradiction, so that's why it's like hard to gauge.